What is that? 18% CO2 and 1.2% CO4. Right, we're going to go in, Matty. I want you to take the Mars in with you. 4, 3, 2, 1. Good to go, Jim.
Being trapped is one of the most scary things you'll ever experience. And whatever it is that has you trapped, debts, lifestyle, bad relationships, or poor health, even life itself, whatever the circumstances, the effects are the same. Stress, worry, desperation, and despair.
We've basically lost about 70% of our capability. I'm desperately trying to keep the mini sea alive. I'm breaking down at the moment, actually. And I'm not a wuss either, you know. I'm a fairly tough character, you know, but this is starting to break me down, massive. This is my last recording, so I want all my folks to know I love them so much, and I'm sorry I put them through all this worry. If I make it through this, things are going to be different. Oh boy.
Above me here are hundreds, perhaps thousands of tons of rock and earth. If I were trapped down here, there is one thing that I would know for sure. I couldn't save myself. I'd be totally at the mercy of forces beyond my control. And even if I wanted to try and dig my way out, I'd be one person getting cold and hungry and tired, digging upward through a mile or 1,500 meters of earth. Actually, when I think about it, what would I even use to dig with? I'd need a rescuer with a plan, and the means to carry that plan out. Without a rescue, I might as well just sit here and wait to die. You see, being trapped is a pretty scary prospect.
My navigation systems are down. I'm lost out at sea.
So here I am in sunny Bristol, and I'm about to meet a bloke who knows how much it costs to be saved.
Almost half of the competitors in the round-the-world race have struck some form of trouble in the 6 weeks since the race started. Today, 2 more yachtsmen put out an SOS, but their cry for help is even more serious than Raphael Donnelly's life-saving transfer to another yacht 10 days ago. This time, the Australian rescue authorities have dispatched the Air Force and the Navy to the southernmost point they've ever ventured in search of missing craft.
Tony Bullimore's boat, the Exide Challenger, capsized, and the majority of press and media reports assume that he was also lost. G'day, mate. How much is that today?
18.50, please.
No worries, mate. Here's 20. You keep the change, eh?
Thanks a lot.
Cheers. The Royal Australian Navy launched a rescue mission for Bullimore and another competitor, Thierry Dubois. It would be one of the most expensive rescue missions in Australian history. G'day, Tony. How you going, mate?
Hey.
All right to come on down?
Yeah, come on board. I'll put the kettle on for a cuppa.
How you going, mate?
All right.
How are you? Good to see you, mate.
Come on board. It's a bit chillier than Australia, isn't it?
Let's get that cuppa going, eh?
Yeah, quick as you like.
Tony, what is it that you really love about sailing, mate?
Well, it's changed over the years, what I love. When I started sailing was about 50 years ago. I was in my early 20s, you know, and I grew up by the seaside, you know. But when I'm at the helm and the boat's doing 20, 25 knots and you've got the wind whistling through the rig and your hair's blowing all over the place on a really lovely day, it's exotic, you know, it's really fabulous. It just builds up my adrenaline and I really enjoy it. I also like the racing. I'm sort of competitive and I like to get out and go for a challenge or two, you know, records, that kind of thing. So there you are.
On that day in 1997, when did you realise that you were in trouble?
Well, I was running through big seas, you know, the winds were blowing up to steady 70, you know, like, and on a 60-foot open class 60 monohull with twin wing masts, you don't really need those kind of conditions, you know. If you've got 35, 40 knots of breeze, that's enough to push you through the seas. But when it's getting up to 70, 75 knots, gusting 100 mile an hour at one point, it's really, you know, phenomenal conditions. But when I knew I was in trouble was when I had a big crack, and I didn't know what it was, but the boat instantly rolled over, you know, it capsized, and I'm saying, come on, old girl, up you get, and she never got up.
When Bullamore's yacht capsized, an emergency beacon was thrown into the water and automatically activated, alerting rescuers within minutes to his position. First evidence that the solo sailor was alive came when he turned another beacon on manually from inside the yacht. Experts believe there was air for about 6 days in the upturned craft, but Bullamore's main concern was keeping out of the freezing water, spending his time in a makeshift hammock curled in a ball to keep warm.
The boat wasn't coming up right, so I had to start thinking survival, where do I go from here? I'm 1,500 miles from Australia, I'm a few hundred miles from Antarctica, I'm way off the shipping lanes. This was all churning around in my mind. I can't do anything at the moment. I'm in the middle of a raging storm. The seas are pounding the boat and rolling over the top. Winds are whistling. All I could do was settle down quietly and wait for the storm to go through to get off the boat and get to dry land. Impossible.
So, Tony, what was the lowest moment of being stuck in the hull of your yacht?
Well, it was probably after 4 days. After 4 days in the water, you know, I'm sort of giving up, feeling hungry. You know, I was hungry, had very little water. I was freezing cold. The seas were just whamming against the side of the boat. The boat's pitching and rolling. I'm standing there with the water rushing over me 1 minute, and then the next minute, you know, I've got my head above the water, everything's okay. You know, I ripped the end of my finger off, you know, doing something on the boat. And I started measuring up how long more have I got to live, and I thought, well, a day, day and a half, my body temperature's going to drop down eventually, you know, below danger level, and, you know, that's it, I'm finished.
And skipper Tony Bullymore has adjusted distress beacons without being visible to the aircraft above him. Pilots hope to discover what condition the men are in by flying low.
The small northern Tasmanian gold mining town of Beaconsfield held its breath and prayed, but by late this afternoon it appeared only a miracle would save the 3 miners trapped underground. In their 30s and 40s, the men are believed to be Brant Webb, Larry Knight and popular local Todd Russell. Rescue teams are on site underground, but it's dangerous work. They're going to use a remote control excavator with a camera to try to clear a way through 15 metres of fallen rock. The body of one of the miners is being brought back to the surface tonight. The grim discovery was made accidentally as a remote control excavator was digging through.
There we are. You're all set.
Oh, thank you.
That's all right.
What's the damage?
Happy birthday.
Are you sure?
Yeah, positive.
Thank you.
That's all right. No trouble.
Hi guys, sorry I'm late.
How are you? Brent.
Pleased to meet you.
Hey Danielle, Todd, how you going?
Yeah, good. Pleased to meet you as well. You turn up to work, it's a normal day. All of a sudden the mine collapses and you're trapped in a tiny space What goes through your mind at that point?
There's a lot goes through your mind. I'm laying there in pitch black darkness, covered in rock, thinking that, you know, the tyre blew out on the machine. You're in a hell of a lot of pain, you're suffering, and you're doing a hell of a lot of thinking as well. And
as miners, you hear of other people getting hit by rocks, and they're not here to talk about it. So the first thing that goes through, went through my head was, I'm alive, but how are they going to get us out? Can they get us out? You know,
I kept saying to him, they're coming to get us, they're coming to get us, even though I had in the back of my mind they were doing a body recovery. You know, if I'd have seen the devastation of what they'd seen from where they were looking, I wouldn't have given us a chance either.
No.
But, you know, the only thing we had virtually in common, we both knew how to sing The Gambler, and we were singing The Gambler that day on that Sunday afternoon, and I said to Brand, I can hear a voice. And he said, what? I said, just be quiet for a minute. And then, you know, we heard this voice from the outside, and it was Steve Saltmarsh and Pat Ball. And, you know, for us to hear that first initial contact through from them guys was, you know, it was just like someone had lifted that rock clean off the top of us, because we knew then that, you know, what they were doing on the outside they had to stop doing and concentrate on, you know, trying to bring us out alive, because the way they were going about their rescue and at the rate they were doing it, there was a fair chance that what they were doing could have killed us.
Last night, 5 days of pent-up fear and grief spilled over when the news came that Todd Russell and Brant Webb were alive.
They're alive, they're talking to us, they're in contact, and they're going to get them out.
Rescue officials are warning it could be another 48 hours at least before they reach Tasmania's 2 trapped miners and bring them out.
it was jubilation for the first 10 minutes, and then we looked at each other and we realised, hang on a second, if they're going to try and come and get us, all this is going to fall in on us and they're just going to go back to the body recovery.
The constant fear was, you know, the rock starting to move above us, and then, you know, once that particular rock moved that was holding it all together fell out, well, there wasn't much hope for us because it would have all just come in on top of us. So
actually, the hardest bit was the drill, actually, just grinding away the, what do you call it? Raise ball. That was the hardest bit because it just kept grinding away, and it was like this drill, you know, grinding away, and, you know, like it was just sort of unrelenting, wasn't it? It was just constant, yeah.
Today, members of a distraught Russell family braved the cameras to publicly thank rescuers and support from the community, which they described as overwhelming.
The worst thing is that, you know, the kids, you've never got to say, you know, how proud you are of them, or, you know, all these things that you think of, but when it's too late, you know. And I suppose that's changed, you know, it's changed Todd and my perception a fair bit, but, you know, a lot of people don't come home when they leave that morning, and you know, there's a lot of things they would have wanted to say.
You can't predict how long you're going to be trapped for, and no one can prepare themselves for that. So probably that is the uncertainty and probably the length of time that you're going to spend there, and you know, you have a lot of time to think when you're trapped as well. You know, a lot of stuff goes through your mind.
So here you are trapped. There is nothing you can do to save yourself except believe that there is a rescue plan underway. Above you are people literally willing to pay the ultimate price, their own lives, to get you out. You know, when you think about that, that's incredible love right there. Sure, you have moments of fear and doubt, even terror, but in the end, you have hope. You have to, because otherwise, without that hope, without that rescue plan, you face what? Eternity in a dark, cold hole in the ground? Is that really all there is?
3 times, please, 3 times. 1.7% CH4, nil CO, and nil H2S.
The body of 44-year-old miner Larry Knight was brought back to the surface last night. Still missing are Brant Webb and father of 3, Todd Russell.
When we lost Larry, I mean, you know, that was the biggest kick in the guts, I mean, either of us could have, because, you know, like, he was a work colleague, he was a friend, and it didn't matter who it was, it really does play a toll at the end of the day.
Was there a time during that process that you thought, no, we're not going to make it?
You know, you think to yourself, well, you know, with all the blasting they've done and all this drill going round and round and making all this vibration, and are we going to make it? We want them to make it, but in your mind you knew that, you know, there was always that great probability of it, you know, all turning to dirt. it's one of the sort of realities of a miner is that, you know, you're dealing with rock. It's like a sailor deals with the ocean, and both of them are very unforgiving.
The one thing that I decided that I wasn't going to go down with the boat, and I wasn't going to, you know, sort of, you know, die in the boat. I was determined to get up to the surface if it all went really wrong, and just float around, you know, for maybe 5–10 minutes, looking up at the sky and the clouds and saying, well, that's it, I've had a good life, and you know, this is the end. You know, what a way to go. You know, here I am in the middle of the Southern Ocean, slowly fading away. My wife's at home, no doubt panicking and wondering what's going on. It was very, very depressing. You know, I always thought that we'd be together at the end. It wasn't going to happen. Just felt pretty horrible, you know, pretty lonely and sort of, yeah, not very nice.
Expecting the sea state to be around a 4 or 5, which probably means these guys are going to get bobbed around a fair bit, and that's going to make life pretty hard for them down there.
In this epic situation we've found ourselves in this great conflict where we are all trapped between good and evil, there is a rescue plan for our life and someone who is willing to do whatever it costs to free us. A rescuer, a hero. And you know, Jesus has promised to bring an end to the debts, the lifestyles, all the circumstances that trap us, wounded and helpless. Jesus is the hero in this epic story. The creator of the universe became a human being, put himself right in harm's way, risking everything to save you and me, no matter what it cost him. He has a plan for our rescue, and he won't give up until he reaches us.
The people of Beaconsfield have been anxiously waiting for the moment that Todd Russell and Brant Webb would be brought back to the surface and to the world they know. Now, the key measurement in the lives of the two trapped miners and the community is not just hours and days, but also metres, as rescue teams drill towards the pair.
OK, Jeff, you say. That's fine. That's heavy, and that's pretty amazing. But with all due respect, this hero lived 2,000 years ago. And look at our world now. All the things that we've been talking about, the things that we want to be rescued from, they've all occurred after his death and resurrection. So where's this big rescue that we're talking about? Where's the plan? You know, I read something recently in the book of Matthew. Jesus talking about himself and what he came to earth to do. He said he came to give his life as a ransom for many. Now, did you get that? He paid to get us back. And we're talking about the big picture now. It's not a rescue where he pays your mortgage. This is an epic rescue of a global scale, and he has already paid the ultimate price to put that rescue plan into action.
The 1,400 nautical mile journey to the stricken yachts and their skippers is expected to take 3 days. The use of a Navy frigate bound for the search area and round-the-clock flights by Orion aircraft from Perth means the cost of locating and rescuing the two sailors is soaring into the millions. But the government is unconcerned about money.
Our obligation here is to honour our commitment under that treaty and to rescue the lives of these two men who are at risk.
Meanwhile, race organisers appear more than happy with existing maritime rescue conventions.
Your yacht was upside down and you were inside the hull, how good did it feel to hear the knocking on the hull?
Well, it was fantastic. I mean, I was laying on this little weeny bit of netting, then I heard this knocking on the side of the hull, and my ears pricked, you know, like a desert rat, you know, what is it? And I sort of jumped to the side of the boat rapidly, put my ear against the side of the boat, and I could actually hear people shouting, you know, and talking. So I got out very, very quick, dived down through the hole in the bottom of the boat, went down a few feet, and then went up to the surface, boat surface. Right in front of me was the Adelaide, the warship, you know, and a big grin come over my face, and I said, God, I've been saved, you know. I was utterly amazed. when I dived out and come out of the water and looked over at the Adelaide, I could only get a tremendous ecstasy that I was looking at life. I was actually looking at a picture of what life was all about, that I was saved. Got to be honest, I've been in some situations in my life before which I could tell you about, but this was the hardest.
How does that make you feel about the value of your life, what they did for you?
It makes me feel fantastic that my life is worth something, and the very fact that Australia put on such an amazing rescue, that organised everything, ships and planes and the rescue services, all this was laid on to save my life, and it made me feel pretty good that here we are, in this complicated world that we live in, and people and countries like Australia prepared to go to such an extreme to save my life. It makes me feel, I'm worth something anyway.
For the Bullymore family in Bristol, news of the rescue came by satellite telephone in the early hours of the morning.
Hug and kiss and run and shout. You're wonderful. Open a bottle of champagne and drink and we shout and we scream and we say, he's alive, he's alive. Wonderful.
No one is going to do that, pay all that money, risk all those lives and then not finish the job, not launch the lifeboat and go get Tony, not dig the last few feet and free Brant and Todd. So if Jesus paid a ransom for us, his life on the cross, did all that work, went through all that pain and suffering, if he had a plan in place, then maybe, just maybe, that rescue mission is underway right now. When you're trapped, you're cut off from the big picture. Now, that's us, isn't it? Here we are trapped and unable to see the bigger reality out there that's far beyond what we can even comprehend. So what's this reality? Is there something beyond living a good life and then just ceasing to exist? There is a plan, the second coming of Jesus. And as much as people have tried to deny it or turn it into fantasy, it's a rescue mission we have known about for 2,000 years. You see, his first coming was part of that plan, the payment of the ransom. That's Jesus as hero. The second coming is him retrieving what cost him so much in the first place. That's Jesus as the rescuer. They will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call. They will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. This is send in the cavalry. Big action hero type stuff. The kind of ending Hollywood would be proud of. And like all the best stories, there is the promise of a happily ever after.
Unbelievably, Todd Russell and Brant Webb strode from the top of the mine shaft and collected their name tags, symbolising the end of a shift that lasted 14 days. Then it was straight into the arms of their families, walking unassisted despite being cocooned for so long underground.
It's an emotion and a feeling that I have with me that I can't explain to people, but it's something that I'll have with me for the rest of my life.
I mean, that takes the cake. I've never had an experience like when we come out and seen the family again, It's just something that sticks with you forever and a day. Very hard to explain because your heart goes straight into your mouth and, it's just sort of a really, really good feeling,
Outside the mine gates waited a reception from hundreds of people.
They've done it up. There's no doubt about that.
It's just amazing to see a community come together in such quick notice.
And so the highest moment of being saved?
We went down to this fish and chip shop in Fremantle. Fantastic. It was the only fish and chip shop where you can get thin, medium or thick chips, crispy and every kind of fish you could imagine. And we were munching away at it, really enjoying, the day. and a few people come over and stood there looking, and it was really quite amazing. They started singing, you know, Rolf Harris's Two Little Boys. And, you know, you talk about making your fish and chips wet. When they started saying, you know, do you think we would leave you dying, you know? Really says it all.
That's the rescue we long for. That's the rescue we're promised through the plan of salvation. Now, some people mock this as fantasy or fairy tale. Well, without it, what do we have? Look around at the world. Without some divine supernatural rescue, without help from outside ourselves, what hope is there? What does the future offer other than the grave? The second coming offers hope. And that's what Jesus offers. How do we know this? Because he has put the plan into action. He paid the ransom. He came to save the lost, and that's what he plans to finish. He made a promise, and he will do whatever it takes to keep it. That's the promise of the second coming. It's a rescue mission, the greatest of all, the last one ever needed.